Hi, so today I want to talk a little bit about visual literacy. In the introduction to this course, I said we were going to cover three main topics. And the first one that I mentioned was visual literacy. This is such an important idea, and I'm surprised more people aren't aware of what it is or its implications. So we know what it means for somebody to be literate. I mean, it means you can read and write. Now, if you're illiterate, you might take this book, a traditional art appreciation book, and if you're illiterate, it really doesn't matter which way you turn it to look at the pictures, because if I'm completely illiterate, everything on this page just looks like a squiggle to me. But if I'm semi-literate, and I just open this randomly, you might be able to say, even though we view the still life from, if I'm fully literate, I might say, even though we view the still life from many different angles, the artist was able to unify the composition by using similar elements. Now, if I'm not only literate but highly fluent and know what I'm thinking about these things, I might be able to say, even though we view the still life, an art form and genre that's been around since the 1500s, from many different angles, because there are many different ways to view things, the artist was able to unify the composition, which really means create a sense of harmony by using similar elements, such as like the same color. So what I just did there with text literacy was went from, I could be illiterate, I could be semi-literate, I could be literate or fluent. Now, when I started to design this class, I get sent things like this. It's the way to teach you how to have art appreciation. And the idea of me making you go text literate, page by page, sentence by sentence, read it and report back to me, or I read it to you because you're too bored to read it to me, I just could not do that. And one of the reasons that I rejected book after book for you guys in your class is because we no longer learn this way. Computers used to be called word processors, right? Because they process words. Well, I don't think I've heard that term in a long time, because we've gone to the graphical user interface, the GUI. What that means is, when you're learning now, when you look at the screen, look at how many words you have for text literacy. You don't have a lot of text on your screen, maybe a little. But normally when you learn something and you go online or you learn about a product, you do it visually. And so you're scrolling on your phone, or you're looking at your computer, or you're watching some kind of, binging on a show. And what's happened is, in your lifetime, we've gone from words to pictures, and most of what you learn is through pictures. Now, I know you can see, but can you read the pictures that are around you? So art appreciation, we learn to be more visually literate by slowing down and looking at art. The problem for you right now is that when you're learning through visuals and you're very visually literate, but you don't know what you're reading, is that images are coming at you more than a mile a minute when you're watching a video or scrolling through something. And so you don't really have time to process these images. Most of the time, within a quarter of a second, you look somewhere else. And there's a real difference between looking at something and observing something. And when you use visual literacy, you learn to read an image or read a situation. Now let me give you an example of that. I just picked up things that were around my studio. And so I have a Wonder Woman cup that's chipped and has lipstick on it. Now, you see this cup, but through visual literacy, you read that it might say something about me. Going to the recycling bin is a Demolition Coffee cup. And not only is the logo itself very carefully designed to make you think a certain way. So you're reading this image, but you're also reading, oh, she drinks coffee and leaves it around. My last major purchase, visual literacy. Notice how there's hardly anything about LensCrafters on the bag, but they're communicating through images. When I communicate through images, I include how I dress. My favorite pair of shoes happens to be some red Tims. Or just how you live a lifestyle. I love to garden. So by showing you a cup, a shoe, a bag, a vase, through visual literacy, you just found out a lot more about me than if I had communicated in words. So the old adage, one picture is worth 1,000 words, is very true. For you, what this means is learning a skill to be more visually literate, to learn to look at something and understand what you see. So if you're a detective and you're first on the scene, it's very important for you to be able to have visual literacy as you look at a crime scene. If you're in medicine, visual literacy. If you're a radiologist, you save lives if you're more visually literate. If you're a lawyer and you have to impress the jury with one of your points and do a graphic display for them, you're going to be using visual literacy to persuade the jury. Right now, every time you go to the grocery store, you're being persuaded that one thing tastes better than the other, one thing is worth the extra money than the other, so you're persuaded as a customer. So in business, visual literacy is what sells the product. So I was thinking about, not so long ago, how I was on a flight to Japan, where I got this shirt, by the way, in Tokyo. But there was a little girl at the airport, and I was reading, and her mother was reading, and she was doing this. And she really wanted us to think she was reading, but she was pretending to read. And I thought, oh, isn't that cute? She's pretending to read. Well, I reached my final destination in Taiwan, and I realized that I was that little girl. I had never, I couldn't remember a time when I wasn't literate, but I'm not literate in Mandarin. And so I would go into a restaurant and I would look at the menu that would be all in Mandarin, and my friend would roll her eyes and like turn the piece of paper upside the other way, so I'd be reading the menu right. And when I was in a city, I was completely illiterate because it was so remote. They only had science in Mandarin. So I say that because I think at first in this class you may be wondering, what is this visual literacy and how do you teach somebody to read an image? Don't I already do that? What I'd like for you to do is reflect why you would want to do that.